is coming, my boy. You must make ready.
Years ago, I watched a dominant kill my brother right in front of me, and I did nothing. But now I can.
I'm here to even the odds. Any objections?
Come, little lamb, to the slaughter with you.
Well, well, well. Thursday night, you say. You know what that means. That's right, it's Gamer Lawyer stream, right? Even 23 and Food Brother Fede Contreras, Kyle, hey, hey. Jay Maxey, am I still playing this antiquated game that released on PC a week ago? 1 week and 1 day ago on PC? I guess it's antiquated in the sense that A, Final Fantasy's been around since the 80s, and B, the game actually first released on PS5, or PS4 and PS5? Like what, 2 years ago? Antiquated. Although, Maxie, you'll be happy to know that in my spare time, I've still been dabbling with Satisfactory. If I didn't think it would completely derail my stream, I would give a update tour of my factory. But yeah, I'm pretty much back up with my factory now where I was a couple years ago. I've got like oil piped in from 5 miles away, and I'm starting to set up the oil refining stuff. And I have a 4-story factory, main factory now. Are you still playing? I'm sorry, did I say Factorio? Satisfactories. But I've been enjoying this game, this Final Fantasy 16. You may notice I've got a little bit of a weird green screen situation going on. You might not notice how weird it is, but there's the corner of my bed over there. So I haven't used my green screen since we got Millie, since we've let her have free reign of the house. Because in order for me to use my green screen the way I normally do, I cut myself off where there's basically like a wall of the green screen right behind me. And the one time I tried that when she was home, that freaked her out. It's that, or I could close my door and lock her out, which freaks her out even more. So I actually have my green screen way back behind me so that it goes behind the bed. And, yeah. So you may see Millie coming and going, but I felt like doing green screen. I miss having my green screen. You know, look at all this high tech super pro streamer technology that I bring, and I haven't been able to do it because of my puppy. Well, I like my cool frame, my streamer frame. It says Gamer Lawyer. That's still kind of cool too, but you know, green screen, guys. So yeah, the only reason it kind of works is because I'm sitting way back from my computer more than I usually do. So I'm closer to the green screen, so I could zoom my camera in more. But when I play Final Fantasy, since I use a controller, I can be further back than usual too. So. Brad, you can't believe the green screen is back. Well, it's nothing like the green screen that you used to use, which I don't know whatever happened to that, but it's one of the things that made you famous. Brad had the best green screen on YouTube Gaming, Years before I ever even did webcam. So, Brad, I see you've been playing what is it? Something Steel? What? Trails of Cold Steel. I've watched 3 episodes. I've watched the first episode the first night, fell asleep, watched the second episode, and then I randomly this morning, like, I woke up and used the restroom, and whatever notification, like number 11, 12, you've been pumping those episodes out. Whatever the most recent one was, I just clicked play and laid back down. Your roommate's grandma passed away on Sunday, and you want to go to the funeral. You have to use your protected PTO to attend because they only cover for immediate family members. Yeah, that makes. I mean, I'm sorry to say that's it's unfortunate, but yeah, companies usually are not so sympathetic if it's your roommate's grandmother, like being like, oh, no, you got to consider that like your own time off. Like that's not. We're not getting. There's no gimmies on deceased relatives of other people that you know. You know, your roommate's pretty close, right? But EV23 has evolved to Goofy on 46. Wow, that's like twice 23. That's 2 times. So is it twice? Is she doubled in goofiness from her regular form of EV23? Trails of Cold Steel is not bad, but I'm really struggling with the orbment nonsense. You should look up good character setups, the same as Trails in the Sky, basically. Yeah, the orbits are pretty much the same. I don't recall that I was having a super hard time with them, but I don't know how much it might have changed. And it also looks like, I mean, I checked in on one of your more recent episodes, and it looks like they got you managing a lot of people, too. But it also looked like maybe you had 4 main ones and a bunch of, like, 6 minor ones? I don't know. I saw 4 people had, like, big names. Maybe those are the ones active in your party. But it looked like you're managing a lot of people. Whereas so far, like in my game, I've only ever managed, like, 3 people at a time in Trails of the Sky. Yeah, 9 characters. Oh, holy crap. You just can't choose them all right now. I got you. That's Skullspink. That's exactly how it works. All right. That's fair. Hey, Skullspinks, what do you think of my green screen setup? Probably has no... Oh, he mostly comes in here just to harass EV23. But yeah, Brad, you might be... so for those who don't know what we're talking about, I streamed a game a few months ago called Trails in the Sky. You might remember I streamed it like 3 or 4 times. I was really into it. It was that old JRPG. It looked like it's 25 years old, and it had a lot of reading. And it was one of the challenges I had streaming it was there's so much reading. But it's one of those series that like people that get into it are obsessed with it. So I resolved like I'm gonna really give it a shot this time. And I got further. I got like twice as far as I've ever been in it before, and then I kind of burned out on it. I've still been kind of like into RPGs and JRPGs, and I've been in like an RPG mode. But I think that's the point where I started shifting to like MMOs and stuff. I started playing like Final Fantasy 14. And Brad apparently has also attempted Trails in the Sky at least a couple times, right, Brad? And he also bounced off of it. So there's a sequel series called Trails of Cold Steel that's significantly more modern. That some people just skip to. Like some people just start with that series instead of starting with the older series from like 20 years ago. And so that's what Brad started doing this week, and he hasn't been able to stream because of his VPN. But he's been uploading like several episodes a day, right, Brad? It seems like 3 or 4 episodes a day, like hour-long blocks of gameplay that you've been uploading. The game is kind of stingy, like you can't afford updated weapons and armor for all my characters. We got 9 characters, Brad. I mean, it's like 18 and counting, those families that have way too many kids. How do they afford that shit? I don't know. But I don't know how you afford upgrade 9 people's equipment. You didn't think there's anything wrong with Trails in the Sky. You just don't like it quite enough to keep at it. And you know what I've also heard, Brad? Is that there are plenty of people that they needed to start with Trails in the Cold Steel. And then once they got hooked on that, then they had the motivation and interest to go back later to Trails in the Sky. And because at that point, they were fully invested in seeing all this stuff, like how it played out, then they were on board. But what everyone says about these Trails series, and then there's another trilogy that came out after Trails in the Sky, and then apparently there's like a ton more games, like two more trilogies that were never released in the States that I think they're in the process of releasing some of those too, like porting them over. But this franchise just has a ton, and it's all in the same world, like the same universe. It's all like related to the same storylines. Like they're all like from different angles, but it's all like related. So people who get into this franchise, once they're invested, it seems like they'll end up consuming everything they can to get as much of like how the story, what was going on. Like one series will be about things happening in this kingdom, and one will be about things happening over here in that kingdom instead. And they're all like maybe happening, sometimes overlapping at the same time, but just from different parts of the world and different perspectives. You like even when you have access to only 4 characters, you can't afford to upgrade all their equipment. Okay, so, and I'm trying to think, like, I feel like money did not come easy in Trails of the Sky either. I just had less characters to worry about. But I think eventually, like, I'd have to pick and choose. Like, okay, I can afford to upgrade this guy's weapon. And because we rely on his weapon a lot, I'm going to buy his weapon. But, like, you couldn't get everything for everyone, at least not right away. The worst part, though, is when they sent the female students home to home ec and the male students to computer class. Okay. The most JRPG thing ever. Well, if they were written, I mean, I could see if it was someone, like, even if it was a Western game, but if it was written by someone that grew up in the 80s and who's not really in touch with things now, thinking like, or isn't that what you do when you go to school? The women go to the home ec and the men go to the wood shop. What? I'm surprised the men didn't go to like metal shop or some shit. The men all went to car mechanics shop and metal shop, and they welded great structures out of iron and steel, while the women were sewing and cooking biscuits and home economics. Always the struggle not to be sexist, even today. Yeah, no, I know. That's why I said it had to be someone who is both someone who grew up in the 80s and also has not been keeping up with how the world has changed since then. You know, it had to be a 1-2 of both grew up in a certain era and out of touch. You know. But I'm under the impression though that you've been playing a bunch of it, so I'm guessing that the pros have been outweighing the cons. I'll be honest, like from what I've watched, it's tempted me. Like, well, I've thought about going back to Trails of the Sky, but I got my hands full right now. But it made me think like maybe Brad's got the right idea. Like if I come back to this series again, maybe I'll do the same thing. You think Japanese game devs would still be doing it all the time if it weren't for Western audiences? So just for our benefit, that they're making at least a slight struggle not to be sexist. This is my melted ice flat Taco Bell beverage. It's my what is it? Mountain Dew Baja Blast Zero. There's only a little bit left. Since I have my green screen on, it just shows as clear. But it's actually kind of greenish, you know. Random encounters can be very challenging, and the plot is good so far, although it's pretty anime tropey. So, yeah. Well, that's how the Trails in the Sky is, kind of, isn't it? I don't know if the voice acting makes it worse when it comes to the anime-iness. Zero drinks tend to be so much better than diet drinks. It's kind of weird because my wife and I were just talking about that the other day, about because we've been buying both diet. We get Diet Cola is what we have the most in the house. We get Diet Pepsi and Diet Coke, but we got like a case of Coke Zero, and for some reason, Coke Zero, like the whole flavor profile is different, and it just tastes like counterfeit Coke, and it still tastes like a diet soda, but some of the other ones, I feel like fruity or citrusy drinks get away with just diet better in general. So I'm pretty sure some of the Zero, like Mountain Dew Zeros, I've had them before and been not sure whether I accidentally got regular sugar. Like, is this diet? Like, and then usually you can figure it out. But I agree that at least with the exception of Diet Coke or Coke Zero, a lot of the Zero line's pretty good. Oh my God, Skull Sphinx. Yes. Crystal Pepsi. And then there was that resurgence of it a couple years ago. Like, they re-released it, I think just for a limited time. I can't remember if I bought some. But I know, like, the worst... And I think I did, and I was like, yep, still not very... Don't really like it. Won't be getting it again. I think the worst was I got Crystal Pepsi Diet Crystal Pepsi. This was like back in the 1990 or whenever it was they released it, and for some reason the combination of the fake Pepsi flavor with the fake sweetening flavor, it gave me a migraine. Like, I could almost feel my head was in pain while I was like when my taste buds were receiving the data. Remember when they changed Coke? Yeah, because and then they went back. So they tried, because Pepsi kept beating Coke in blind taste tests. So someone at Coke was basically like, hey, why don't we make new Coke? And basically new Coke was just Pepsi. It tasted almost exactly like Pepsi. Because Coke has got a little bit of, like, I don't know if you call it a citrusy, but it's got kind of a twang to it that other colas don't have. And it's not as sweet as Pepsi. And so I think that's why when people were tasting them side by side, like, for some reason when they drink the Pepsi, and it was just this more straightforward, cleaner, sweeter taste. And the Coke was less sweet with a little, but I think Coke always has a slightly more nuanced flavor. And so they got rid of that. And everyone was like freaked out, like the Coke, because the people that like Coke liked it because it didn't taste like Pepsi. It's like a different thing, right? So it was all up in arms. And then forever there was Coca-Cola Classic. They don't call it Classic anymore, but for a few years they brought back the old Coke formula and they rebranded it as Coca-Cola Classic. You still think of it as Coca-Cola Classic? They called it that. Did they call it that for 20 years? I didn't know that. Pepsi couldn't compete with Coke until Taco Bell started carrying it? Wait, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Doesn't Pepsi own Taco Bell? I feel like Pepsi, yeah. I don't know. Both of those, Coke and Pepsi are like, they're weird. And their competition is weird. Like, back around the late 90s, like 98, 99, 2000, I worked in a grocery store. And I remember, like, I didn't do the ordering, but I remember hearing from the people, like guys I worked with that did the ordering for sodas, that there was this real kind of like, the Coke guy would like say, we're not going to deliver Coke to you anymore if you buy too much Pepsi. Or if you start carrying Pepsi's new product, we're going to pull the plug. Like, they would threaten to stop giving us Coca-Cola products if they'd like, no, don't. It was weird. I would just say it was weird. And I think also we had a deal with Coke like our Coke distributor. So we used to get like super cheap Coca-Cola. Maybe that was it. And it was one of those things that we offered in our store that was extra cheap, that we'd put in the Daily Bruin, like the UCLA newspaper. We'd put that in there as like, come for 99-cent 12 packs of Coca-Cola. The internet claims they only stopped in 2009. All right. Pepsi bought KFC, Pizza Hut, and Taco Bell in order to sell Pepsi. No, but I'm wondering though, like, did that happen before or after those franchises started selling Pepsi? Or is that why when Taco Bell started selling their whole Pepsi lineup, was that the point at which Taco Bell was bought by Pepsi? Like, what's came first, the chicken or the egg, right? Did Pepsi get big because these chains were already selling their stuff? Or did they just front load a shit ton of money and buy the franchises so that everywhere you turned, you had to buy Pepsi? I like Pepsi. I also like Coca-Cola, but I almost consider them two different beverages. Like, I'll be like, what do I want to drink? And sometimes, like, Pepsi sounds good, and sometimes Coke sounds good. And they don't always both sound good at the same time. It's sort of like, what do I want? Do I want a Coca-Cola or a Sprite? It's like there's two different things. You don't just because you're in the mood for one doesn't mean you're in the mood for the other. So I've never had like a, fuck you and your Coca-Cola. I'm a Pepsi man. It's the choice of a new generation. You guys remember that? Pepsi. The choice of a new generation. I think that was like around 1990, the big ad campaign. So like, you'd be this out of touch old grandpa if you still like Coca-Cola. Before, Pepsi was losing to Coke and it bought them out to force them to sell Pepsi. Okay. So probably one has a clear answer. So it's not like the chicken and the egg. I just don't know the... There we go. That's true. Just because I don't know which one came first doesn't make it a chicken or egg scenario. That's a good call out, Brad. Miller should have bought them instead so Taco Bell could be forced to sell High Life. Wayne one. Money or no, I will not bow down to any sponsor. Taco Bell. Jay Maxley, you're a Pepsi guy, but Sprite beats the shit out of 7-Up. Who owns 7-Up? I feel like 7-Up is its own thing, but everyone might own everything now. I feel embarrassed because this is something I'm embarrassed like 25 years in retrospect, because we had a whole line of sodas and we used to get one, we got Dr. Pepper, and Dr. Pepper was delivered to us by our Coca-Cola distributor. And so I thought that meant that Coca-Cola owned Dr. Pepper. And at least then I found out later that I was wrong about that. The reason that came up was some person was in our store. They were from Texas or someplace where they were from someplace where there was like a Dr. Pepper factory, like an HQ for Dr. Pepper. They were all obsessed about Dr. Pepper. And I was like, well, Dr. Pepper's owned by Coca-Cola. And she drew a line in the sand, was like, no, fuck you. But she didn't say fuck you, but she was very strictly. And I stayed, I did not budge an inch. And I'm like, you're wrong. And then later I looked it up and I realized, like, at least at that point, it was Dr. Pepper owned it. They were their own company. And it was just a distribution deal. They weren't owned by Coca-Cola. That's one of those things I still look back and I'm embarrassed about it. That and the time I went into a bar, I got super drunk and I requested a song, and I kept saying it was like the wrong artist. I think it was, I wanted them to play All She Wants to Do Is Dance, and I kept saying it was by Bryan Adams, and the guy's like, no, it's by Don Henley. And I basically bothered this fucker for like 20 minutes about like telling him so condescending shit. Like, I know what I'm talking about. It's okay. It's okay to be wrong, even though you're a DJ and you're supposed to know this shit. I'm surprised they didn't get the bouncers on me and kick me out of that place. That's one of the examples of the times I got drunk And then later the next day, I was like, oh my God, I made a complete ass of myself. Like, just an irritating, like, ass. McD sold beer in Germany, Maxie? All right, I'm not surprised. It's kind of weird that fast food places don't sell beer. Yeah, some do. Rubio's, where they sell my fish tacos, they sell, I think they sold Coronas. Eggs predate chickens by millions of years. Yeah, I think that technically, yeah. I think you're literally true. The proto chicken had to lay the first chicken egg. So technically, we do know that the egg came first. I agree, Skull Sphinx. And I think that's being informed in how all that shit works. But does it still... Was there ever something... I guess there would be a proto-egg, too. It's like, there's ever a point where the first, whatever the hell it was, laid the first egg, and before that, they're doing something else? But it would have been, you know, like, hey, it's... they just sort of shoot this gel sack out. And then that gel sack got a little harder, and it became something else. Dr. Pepper was never owned by Coca-Cola. Well, the reason I kept being careful about that, Brad, now, is because I haven't been keeping track since then of who the fuck bought what. So, I know this is a snapshot of what I was aware of 25 or almost 25 years ago. That because our Coca-Cola distributor was the truck that delivered our Dr. Pepper, I thought that meant that they owned it. And I drew a hard line defending that conclusion. And then I later found out that I was wrong. Although its bottlers are often shared with either Coca-Cola or Pepsi. Oh shit, how did they allow that? Like, the way I understood it was like Coca-Cola drivers and Pepsi drivers would almost be like the you know, what's the Jets and the Sharks meeting in the street, like snapping their fingers, having fights and shit. Were you high on meth making song requests? No, I was just in a bar and I was drinking. I don't know what I was drinking at that point. It's hard to say. I probably had my little stealth bottle of vodka in a little Sparklets bottle. That's how I used to do it when I was in college a lot of the time. I'd have a little, like a plastic water bottle filled with like a clear alcohol. And then to save money, before we went into the bar, I would like, on the parking lot, I'd like chug a bunch of it and then stick it in. I wouldn't drink it inside the bar. But yeah, I probably could have gotten a lot of trouble for that shit. But you know, that was the 90s. You don't think the saying is referring to egg in general? It's referring to the chicken egg specifically. Yeah, no, I think that's true. So, wow, we're getting awfully nuanced about this. So, but the saying is, what came first, the chicken or the egg? And then Skull Sphinx is like, well, technically the egg would have predated the chicken by millions of years. But yeah, I think the saying is literally like, the first chicken that was born, like, how did it come out of an egg if it was didn't come from a chicken? Like, how did that, it's that sort of like, how could that possibly happen? But I think that's also in like the context of like at some point maybe they all just sprang into existence. So what, would the chicken spring into existence first, or did the egg spring into existence first? So I think the whole argument is based on, or the whole like dilemma is based on a fundamental lack of understanding of how life came about, from at least scientifically. The egg was laid by a proto-chicken, but produced an egg containing a chicken. And that thing about speciation and stuff too, that's a real gradual thing. Because it's like, where do you draw the line? I think, what is the rule? It's like if it could procreate, they're considered the same species. But you could take stuff that Like, whatever came before and came out of that next egg could still procreate, but over time, this first one would not have been able to procreate with something 50 generations down the line because it was too different. Yeah, speciation is never clear. And I think one of the things that helped me understand how it worked a little bit was, I want to say in California, there was like a study of lizards, and all these lizards that were related, that is slowly like the populations has spread out from north to south, so that all along California, adjacent communities of these lizards can reproduce the whole way up and down from north to south. But if you take one of these lizards from of that basically like family from the southern end and try to breed them with the north end, they can't anymore. So that technically somewhere things have spread out to where, like, yeah, there's this weird spectrum that's now occurred where you'd have to say, like, well, I guess technically those lizards there are not the same species, or at least, at the very least, they've evolved separately enough that they can no longer genetically procreate. There's probably a lot of, like, blurred lines where it's like, okay, well, their procreation rate is less successful between these two, but they can still do it or whatever. And then flash forward another million years and they can't do it anymore. It's a well-known idiom that we really don't need to dissect like this, so sorry. It's okay, Brad. I mean, I do notice that we had an enthusiastic crowd came into the stream, eager to see some Final Fantasy 16, and most of them are gone now. But isn't that part of the charm of my channel? Is we engage in these little exercises that really separates the people that belong here with the people that don't. So the people that come in and they're like, what is this shit about chicken and egg and proto-species and shit? I came here for Final Fantasy 16. I'm out of this place. And then they leave. And then we're like, all right. And then Pipe Cop comes on the screen or some shit. That's the other one. That's the big one that probably really gate-kept my community. How much of this game did I play since last week? I haven't played a ton of it. I probably played like another 3 or 4 hours. So maybe twice as much as I played before. I've gotten a little bit further in the story. Like, I'll have to catch you guys up a little bit with what happened since last time. And I don't play as much as I used to in general, or I just won't be in the mood. Like last night, I was just tired. It's been a little bit of a week. Not terrible, but it's been like whatever. So like last night, I didn't want to deal with the combat, the action combat. And I was tired. And there were a lot of things I didn't want to deal with last night, but I felt like playing something. You know what I ended up playing, Brad? Peggle. Didn't you have a version like a newer gen version of Peggle? I played Peggle. And I played Peggle for about 20 minutes, and I got joy out of it, and then I went to bed. Because it was already late. It's one of those nights where I spent more time thinking about what I wanted to play, because I was what I like to refer to as game fussy. Devil May Clive! Yes! Yes, Mike. That's what I'm playing. I do get very tired easily. You might have chronic mono. Yeah, could be. Well, I also get like just... I get tired. I also get where I feel just overwhelmed sometimes. And it makes me not want to deal with a whole lot. It makes me not want to like be like where having to deal with like fast action combat or even focusing on a storyline. Because honestly, I've got Final Fantasy 16 set right now. The combat is like, it's not quite the easiest that you can make it, but it's pretty close. But sometimes I just don't want to deal with like having to pay attention to a story. So like I had true crime videos going on my second monitor. And at a certain point, my objective became, I want to play a game that I can goof around with while I'm watching or listening to true crime podcasts or true crime videos. And Final Fantasy is kind of like one of those games, and a lot of the AAA games that I have never finished, that's part of the reason that ends up happening, is your attention more or less has to be all hands on deck with what's happening in that game to appreciate it. And Final Fantasy is very much like playing through a movie. So it's not like you're going to sit there and put like a movie on the screen and then watch a true crime video on the other screen at the same time, right? Because at least normally, most times when you're watching a movie, it's going to engage, it's going to be the central target of your engagement. Unless you're just don't give a shit about the movie, right? Peglin. Okay. But it's more work than plain old Peggle. Okay, that's what I think. Did you stream that? Because I thought I remembered seeing you play it or something. My week. Okay. I got pissed off. First off, we got our trip coming up next month. So we're a little stressed about that. I had a deadline this week having to do with my student loans. So a few months ago, I started getting these emails saying that my student loans were in default, and I had until September 30th to rehabilitate them. And I'm like, well, this is fucking phishing because I don't have any student loans in default. I've been on top of my student loans for years. Like, my credit score's highest it's ever been in my life. I don't have student loans in default. But I kept getting these emails. And so a little while ago, I actually was like, fine, it says I'm getting these emails from the Department of Education. So I'm not going to click anything in the fucking email. I'm going to the Department of Education. It's a website. And you can find out like all the loans that you have listed on that website. And I thought I took all my loans out from the same lender initially. They got sold off, but I thought they were all with the subsequent lender that I've been dealing with for like 10 years now. It turns out that there were, and the amount that I owe in loans is absurd. It turns out there's $75,000 in loans that got sold off somewhere else. And that for whatever reason, whoever was holding those loans wasn't saying jack shit to me. So I just didn't know. And my loan balance is so high that it's like over $500,000 already. So let's just say $75,000 sounds like a lot. But when your balance is $500,000, you're not thinking, well, gee, shouldn't there be another $75,000 in there? This doesn't add up. So yeah, student loans, holy fuck, man. Anyways, because that's what happens when you graduate from law school and then you can't pay anything for many years because there's no jobs. So anyways, yeah. So, and then this thing that sucked is they're like, you have to do this thing. It's something I think like the Biden administration gave like this special rehabilitation period where you get your loans out of default if you act before September 30th. And so for the last, month or so, I kept going back to this website and they said to click this link to go to the place where you do this thing to get to use this program to get your loans out of default. And every time I'd go to the link, it would be this website under construction bullshit. Like, oh, this website isn't up yet, whatever. It's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And so finally, like, last week, there's a phone number associated with it. So I called the phone number and like there were no agents available or some shit. And I'm like, okay, fuck it. So, and then I didn't realize how easy it was going to be. I'm still going to have to sort this shit out later, but I've got to figure, and then my main loans are also being transferred. Like my lender that I've been dealing with for 10 years is transferring all of my loans to another lender. So and when you're doing all this like income-based repayment and all this shit, and you got to coordinate that across like multiple lenders, and also because I think like with my wife, we're like the same household, so we have to like, she's got her own student loans, so it just becomes this really complicated fucking mess. And so that's what I thought I also had to deal with that this week. And I did actually finally the other day, was it yesterday? I clicked on the website link again and it opened up and it let me do it. It took 5 seconds and they're like, okay, this is gonna get sent to another lender. You'll hear more about like starting the income-based repayment in 2 months. I'm like, okay, fine. So now I don't gotta worry about that right now. But yeah, so, and then, so I've been going to the dentist and I was supposed to have this gum treatment thing on Monday, but I have a tooth in the back that started hurting me, and my dentist, and I was like, I'm not gonna be able to get gum work done back there with this tooth hurting. So my dentist had originally done like the whole scouting out of everything in my mouth. And he told me this back molar in the very back, it's like, is that bothering you? It's like, no. He's like, it's got some problems in there. And he's like, and it's bad enough at this point that like when it gives you trouble, we're not going to be able to like repair it. So you're going to either have to get it extracted, or you're going to need to get an implant. And implants are not fucking cheap. And so we're hoping to be able to like pass that off. But then that one started hurting, and so I'm like, okay, I need to go to the dentist and see what's what. And so we figured out it was that tooth. I had to change the appointment, so I went on Tuesday for that. And then they give me the whole breakdown, and they're like, okay, so if we want to extract it, we'll just take it out. If you want to implant, then we have to extract it and do a bone graft. And then we have to wait 4 months, and then like this is like 6 months. Like I think they said a total of 8 month process, and it's like $6,500. And I'm sitting there like, but you have to decide at the time you're gonna do. You can't get it extracted and then decide and not do anything else, and then decide a year later to get an implant. Because if you extract it without doing the bone graft, then the hole seals up, and then you lose bone density, and you no longer have enough bone there for an implant. So I basically had to decide. Well, I guess I could have come back another day, but I had to decide before I could get an extraction what I wanted to do. So I'm like texting my wife, like, "Hey, $6,500 all in for an implant." And the dentist is like, yeah, it's your back molar, so you could probably, it's not like a critical, but you got enough life left, and the basic, like their strategy is, their recommendation is, the more teeth you can keep and hang on to, or functional, if it's implants, the better. So if you can like afford it and it's worth it to do it rather than just extract it. So anyways, so then right there in the dentist chair, I was like, fine, you know what? Let's at least proceed with the bone graft, which is just all by itself. The bone graft is $1,500. And I've already used all my insurance for the year, mind you. So if I make this decision, I'm like going to walk out that day and pay them $1,500. Oh, they probably do financing, but we would be able, we could afford to pay that. We've been saving for a house down payment for years, for a housing market we can't afford. So we got a big chunk of money that's would have been enough for a house down payment 5 years ago, but isn't anymore because nothing's affordable. So because of that, technically, we don't want to be delving into that money, but we've got that money. Like if I need to put $6,000 into a tooth, we can do it. We just would prefer not to, because that's our house money. Anyways, so yeah. Anyway, yeah. Look, you asked me. Since a stressful week, and off I go to the races. So I finally go, yeah, okay, let's proceed with the bone graft. So they shoot me up with the numbing stuff, and they leave me alone for 5 minutes and come back, and they're like, all right, you feel numb yet? And I felt all this numbness over here, and he's like, you should feel your entire bottom lip should be numb to the middle. And I feel my lip. I'm like, well, no, I can still feel my lip, my whole lip. I said, it's numb right in the corner. He's like, no, your whole lip should be numb. He's like, okay, we'll give you a little more. So he give me more. He goes off for 5 minutes. He comes back. All right, how's your lip now? I'm like, no, my lip it still could feel the whole thing. And he's like, all right, so let's do a little test on your tooth, because maybe your tooth is actually numb down there. I'm gonna do a little temperature test where they shoot like cold air against the tooth. And he did that, and I'm like, I could feel it. And he's like, okay, no, that's not good. We're not gonna do anything. If you could feel that, we're not gonna do anything. He's like, okay, we're gonna give you one more shot. But if this one doesn't work, then we've run out of time. Like, we're not going to have enough time to keep trying this today. And we're going to have to reschedule you. And that's when, in fact, what ended up happening. And so that kind of sucked. Like, so then I go back. I missed the first 2 hours of work. I go back to work. I almost immediately have to go to a meeting. My whole, well, except for my lip, apparently, my whole mouth and tongue and everything in here is just like completely dead numb. So I'm like, you're going to have to excuse me in this meeting because I went to the dentist and they numbed half of my face. And then they didn't do any procedures. So here I am back at work. So, yeah. And then on top of that, I've still got to go in next week and do it all over again. So that's on my mind. And then, all right, what else? Oh, this is another fun thing, and this is probably not a big deal. Like, people maybe know this. I didn't. So they explained to me what a bone graft is. I'd heard the term bone graft before, but I'd never been in my life in a position to like, where I needed to get one for anything. And they said what it is they put like bone matter into your mouth. After they take the tooth out, they like plant something in there that makes your body think it needs to regenerate more bone around it. But what they put in there is like pieces of bone matter from a cadaver. And so immediately I'm spooked out. Like, I'm not a super, like, I don't necessarily believe in ghosts, but I also get spooked out. Like, just the idea, I'm like, well, if anything could be cursed, having it like a part of a dead body inside my mouth, and then I know I'm such a sweet little baby. They're gonna put a dead body tooth inside my mouth. And then he's like, okay, so we put the thing in your mouth, and then we put like a membrane over it, and then we have to see you in a week to make sure that everything is going right. And one of the common things that can happen is that membrane comes loose, and you might feel some of the bone particles that we implanted in you like come out of your mouth. It's not unusual. And so then I'm like, all right, so I'm gonna have dead people bones inside my mouth, and there's a chance I'll just be chilling out and have just like be like, oh, what's that? Oh, dead people bones, like stuck in my gum. Oh, well, there's some more corpse bones on me. I'm haunted, Mike. Yeah. I was talking to my wife about that. It's like, yeah, normally I don't really believe in ghosts. Like, I'm very much skeptical, but there's some part of me that's like spooked out enough about it where I'm like, well, how? There's nothing asking for more trouble than to put part of a dead person's body inside your mouth. If you want some kind of like someone to haunt your ass, you gonna call the Ghostbusters to knock my tooth out? Every atom of your body is from... Well, it's true. Yeah, Brad, from a very technical point of view, every atom in our body is something that's been around for a lot longer than we are. And it's probably all been ever... It's like they say that if you exhale a breath right now, within 7 years... that exhalation from inside of your lungs has dissipated so broadly that every person on Earth taking a breath is going to get at least one molecular particle from that exhalation. So, yes, I know in the grand scheme of things, you can look at things that way. And then also, when I think about like organ donors and shit like that, that doesn't spook me out. Like if I knew somebody like, oh, they had to have a kidney transplant, I'm not like, oh, the kidney's gonna haunt you and shit. Like, I never think about that until they tell me a dead person's bone tooth particle is gonna go into my mouth. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, oh, spooky. Well, yeah, it's true. That's true, Brad, but not in the same sense of like something died and well, you know what? We eat meat and shit all the time. But not in the sense of like a human person died and then we broke a piece off of them and put them inside us. That is not how most of us experience that, right? It's fine that I still want to split hairs. I think there's a difference between, I do think there's a difference. Like, if there was a dead corpse in my body, laying in my bed right now, I would leave the fucking house. I couldn't deal with that. You can say, well, technically, your body's got a dead corpse in it, so it's just like more of you. It's like, no, yeah, technically, yes. But there's a dead body in I'm getting the fuck out of here right now, because I can't cope with that shit. Like, I don't want to see it, I don't want to be around it. But you could say, well, I don't know why you're bothered, because you're made of the same stuff that thing is. So it's basically just like two of you in your bed. Haven't I heard of the Circle of Life? From Lion King? Yeah, I have. But see, the circle, that's the thing is, it's a circle. I'm here and the dead person's over here. It's when the circle is like the dead human being is right next to me in the circle and then they're going into my body, that weirds me out. As long as the dead person's somewhere on the other side of the circle from me, I can be like, that's too far. It's too far removed for me to be spooked out about it. It's all the same stuff. Everything else is superstition. And normally, yeah, I agree with you. But Brad, there's a part of me that, like when I've been in weird places in the middle, late at night, and I've gotten weird feelings, and I'm sure those are all in my own head, right? I don't actually think like, oh, that was probably a ghost. But there's some remote part of me that's like, but what if it is, right? And so when I hear people talk about they've seen ghosts and shit, my assumption is they saw what they read into what they wanted to read into it. They were looking for the thing, so they made it. They conformed their experience to what they thought they were going to see, and it was not what they thought they were going to see. But in the depths of the night, or the right situation, I can still be like, what the fuck? What if all that shit's real, dude? What if it's real? And I can still get spooked. I know it's irrational. I understand that. So I'm not someone that's like, oh, that must have been a spirit. Like the house crack. Oh, that must be its spirit. Oh my gosh. I wonder who's trying to communicate with me. I don't approach the world that way. Use your femur as drumsticks? I don't give a shit. Well, I appreciate that, Brad. And I assume that since you're giving me permission to do that, that if I did do that, you wouldn't haunt me. Can you give me a no haunt guarantee, Brad? So even though that you know, you would also say that no ghosts exist, I would like a guarantee that you agree right now, while I can still communicate in a clear manner with you, or whatever, as clear as whatever this is, that if I use your femurs in that way, I will not end up like cursed by the Brad spirit, being like, yeah, I desecrated his you know, whatever, by doing it in this way. It'll be a taiko drum, as your femurs are fairly large. Okay. Is there a wee as a wind chime? That was Mike said that. I didn't say that. I think there's nothing worse than a wind chime wee curse for someone that's been misused in such a way, especially without their permission. You can't guarantee it. You don't believe the ghosts are real. The possibility that I'm wrong is real. Well, let's just say, Brad, that the most we can say is if it turns out that you do become a ghost, and if it turns out that you remember this discussion, and you have the ability to still make decisions about what you do, and one of those decisions is whether to punitively haunt me for using your femurs in that way, that you will not do that. There's a lot of qualifications to this agreement. I'm not going to. I can almost guarantee you that I would never even, if something happened to you, God forbid, Brad, I'll never even see your femur. I probably never even ever have the option to acquire your femurs. But I know that somehow we had a discussion. You gave me permission to use them in this way, in this manner. You know, so this is all hypothetical. Just blame Mike. Let's see, there are ghosts. If ghosts have free will, I won't haunt you. There we go. Okay. You don't think ghosts have free will if they're real? You just watch over me in my dreams. That'd be fine, Brad. I'd appreciate that. Millie's over here. What do you got there, girl? Where'd that come from? We've got this treat ball for her where you put like a frozen thing in there, but it's also a ball and it's super heavy. And so she likes to take it up on my bed and then drop it off my bed to make a dramatic crash. Wow, you guys, you got me going about all this shit. It's like we're 55 minutes into my stream. Let's see. Let's make sure I didn't miss anything, because I went off on some tangents tonight. But all this is to say that there were things going on this week that were just a little bit like, holy fuck, I got too much I'm dealing with right now. And when I was just watching these like true crime videos or whatever it was, just people talking, I'm like, okay, I'm into this. I kind of want to play something, but I mostly want to play something that I can still pay attention to what all this talky shit that's happening over here while I'm just sort of screwing around with this game on the side, right? So I actually downloaded like 3 or 4 what I considered more basic-y games. Well, not really. I downloaded Tales of Majayal, but then I thought, no, it's probably too complicated for my... And then I downloaded Dungeon Mans, because I was like, that's more like a more simple version of that. Like something where I just walk a turn-based thing through a dungeon, just control one person, and he just fights monsters. And then for some reason I thought of Peggle. I was like, okay. Well, I also downloaded Delta V Rings of Saturn. You guys familiar with that one? That's it's like a 2D space mining thing. I played it a while ago. I don't think I ever streamed it. I've thought about streaming it though. It's kind of a weird, funky little game, but it's neat. But that game also, like, I could play that while I was watching podcasts, but there's a bit of a learning curve, and I want to deal with that. Like, once I learned it again, then I could do the podcast. You haven't heard of it? Let's see. We'll say... All right, you know how I like to do this. Here, this is Delta V. Rings of Saturn. So just so Brad knows I didn't make it up. So yeah, it's kind of a fun, interesting game, but it does have some complexity to it. But I seem to remember, like, once you get it down, it becomes kind of like it's like one of those games that I play that a lot of you guys think don't look that fun, which are like, it's a job game. You're basically like a space miner, and it's the game. But like, shit happens. Like, the further you go, it's like into the Ring of Saturn to mine. Like, the more dangerous, weird shit you find out there, and like the harder things get. So it's like, it's not just all boring, but it's definitely, yeah, not for everybody. That's right, Brad. Chore-based games. That's what I felt like doing last night, was playing a chore-based game too. But then every chore-based game I could think of seemed too demanding. Like, I was like, I don't want to deal with Satisfactory, because that shit's making me think too hard about how to, like, optimize my factory. I don't want to deal with that shit. And then I was like, I thought, oh, maybe Planet Crafter, but it's the same thing. It's like, can't I play something that's like, not gonna make me think about what the fuck I'm doing? Cook Serve Delicious is a frantic game though. I think that would stress me out. Stegosaurus is older than the rings of Saturn. Really? They were not yet formed when the Stegosaurus walked the Earth. I heard the rings might be dissipating, too. Something about that. What are you doing over there, Moo? Time management games? No, not like Satisfactory if we're talking about that, no. Maybe the Cook Serve Delicious one could be possibly, maybe? I don't know. Because in Satisfactory, you can take as long as you fucking want. There's no timer going. It's just figuring out how to optimally lay out your factory. If you want to do it right, is a fairly complex task. On the lower level, it's not all that stressful. I thought about streaming Peggle tonight. Here, just to screw with people. I'll show you guys a round of Peggle.
45 seconds of gameplay.
Let me see. So window capture. And there we go. And it's super tiny. It's super tiny, so I've got to expand it. On my desktop, Peggle would have been great. On my desktop, it looks like this. And you can't maximize it.
45 seconds of gameplay.
Well, apparently it's the only kind you got. It still says in my library Peggle, but when you launch it, it's Peggle Deluxe. Let me see. So I've been playing the adventure. Let's get the sound effects up. There we go. Back to game. So the whole thing is you've got to knock out all these red blocks. It's like Plinko from Price is Right. Oh, it got stuck. Okay, never mind. And then it falls below you. It's like you got all these balls over here. If the ball lands in here, then you get a refund. And then there's the bonus things. Like if you hit the green stuff, it will do special things. I think in this level, if you hit the green ones, it will cause this thing to have like huge shield wings to bounce the ball back up. Plinko is obviously the best Price is Right game. You also like it when the man falls off the mountain. I used to love that one too. And it does the yodeling. The yodelay, yodelay. Oh. Ah. Ah. You used a work computer to play solitaire, haven't you? I honestly can't remember if I ever have used a work computer to play solitaire. I'm aware that I've had work computers that have, like, by default, because you have Windows, has it installed. I might have played Minesweeper on a work computer before, but I can't recall, because... Yeah. Oh, I got the free ball. Nerd. Oh, go in the thing. Oh. It's okay if I just play this all stream, Brad? Oh, no. No. I actually failed this one earlier, this level. Or they get harder as you play. Oh, I'm definitely not going to get this one. Oh, I got a super long shot. That's nice. Let's see. I've got 3 balls left. And there are Oh, I haven't hit one of these green ones yet. No! Okay, that's it. I can retry it now. Would you be into a whole stream of just this game, Brad? Oh, there, I got the extra thing. Oh, that didn't help me a whole lot. Ah, see, even though this thing is doubled in size, it's not helping me. There is a certain addictive quality to this. But I like when you actually clear the level. It's so hype. Yeah, I got the pyramid pickup. Reminds you of when you would spend hours playing Sega Swirl on your Dreamcast and your friends were wondering why you didn't have NBA 2K. It's a good yeah, it's a good question. Seems unlikely that thing would help you very often. Yeah, thanks, Brad. I'm doing pretty good. Look how many balls I got left. Oh. All right, this is it. A little ode to joy. This is quite the festive celebration when you get that last one. Ooh, straight to the 100 grand. Yes. Yeah, extreme fever, baby. Oh, nice. Hey, Jetfire. Good to see you, man. Lurking along, old friend. All right. Good deal, man. Thank you for lurking. Yeah, maybe I'll just... It says I'm playing Final Fantasy, but maybe I'll just play this, since the 4 people that are here seem into it. Let's see. So, let's see. We'll start... Here, let's mix things up. Oh, I got the pyramid. That didn't help me at all. Oh, yay, free ball. Oh. Ooh, I'm not doing too bad. Oh, I mean, that wasn't awesome, but, you know. Ah. The ding-ding sounds and flashy lights activate dopamine in our elderly brains. That's because it's easy to visually parse. Say I had to clean up some dog piss. I come back and immediately know what's happening. All right. Here we go. Come on, get back. Pyramid, save me! Pyramid's always at the wrong place. The pyramid takes up half the screen. Oh, there's like a really kind of a cool basic charm to this. And then you can speed it up. I want to see if I can ricochet off the last 2 here. There we go. Yeah. Get to that 100 grand in the middle. Ooh, yeah, baby. Oh, well, 50 grand's still good. Yeah. Let's see that instant replay. Yeah, I could just watch this all night long. All right. All right. But you know what? For reals now. Maybe I'll stream this next week. But the advertisement says Final Fantasy. And I do, in fact, like Final Fantasy. And so do you, Brad, right? So we're going to leave Peggle. And I'm going to actually play some Final Fantasy. Let's get my controller file.